Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
Now, when Theresa May was Home Secretary in 2015, she met families of men who had died in police custody. She was so moved that she demanded that the Home Office investigate. Its report was completed at the beginning of this year and was due to be published this week. But now the Home Office has said it will not be published for 2 months. Channel 4 has seen the report, which recommends fundamental changes to the way police deal with people in custody. Simon Israel reports.
By extraordinary coincidence, the cases of these 5 deaths in custody, Adrian MacDonald, Joseph Fuong, Kingsley Burrell, Oluchenyi Lewis and James Herbert, arrive at some form of hearing in the next 2 weeks. James Herbert had a history of mental illness. In June 2010, he died after being restrained, detained, driven 30 miles, then carried unconscious into a police cell. His father has waited 7 years for the chance to hold police to account for his son's death.
It's been very frustrating. If you think about it, you know, the investigation into an hour and a half's worth of time and some background has taken longer than the Second World War. It feels like a deep insight. It makes you feel like your loved one, James, didn't really count. And for us, of course, he was my only child. He was the most important person to me of all.
Tony Herbert gave evidence to a review commissioned back in 2015 when Theresa May, as Home Secretary, acknowledged the system was unfair.
I've been struck by the pain and suffering of families still looking for answers, who've encountered not compassion and redress from the authorities, but what they feel is evasiveness and obstruction.
That review, completed last January, remains unpublished. Channel 4 News has seen the report. The 100-plus recommendations include no conferring on initial accounts among officers involved in a death in custody, properly funded bereavement counselling for families, and free non-means tested legal advice and representation. It also recommends ex-police officers are phased out as lead IPCC investigators. There is no word from the Home Office on when the review will be published.
Why isn't the Home Office publishing it? Because the system's rigged. Because the Home Office, you know, in these times of austerity, perhaps they might be expected to spend a bit of money. I don't know, but it just feels to me to be absolutely outrageous that something like this can get commissioned, be finished, be a document which for positive change, and then just sat on.
Oluchenyi Lewis's parents were another of the 20 families who contributed to the review. Their son died in a psychiatric hospital in 2010, following prolonged periods of restraint by police officers. They have had to wait 7 years to find out why. They too feel let down.
I think for a start, the IPCC were not up to the task. They failed us. We had to have a second investigation, and hence we had 7 years, nearly 7 years before we had our inquest. So, I mean, that can't be right.
They were instrumental in getting the review, but have heard nothing.
We've never heard from Amber Rod, so I don't know what she thinks. You know, I would have thought that she might have asked to meet us, but not heard anything, so.
The review acknowledges that the opinion of many families is that the police are seen as above the law. Suspensions are rare, investigations often opaque. There was no response from police chiefs or the Home Office tonight.
Simon Israel.
I've been